Hello there, algebra students. This is Mr. Kashi speaking. This will be day 2 of our Chapter 9, Section 6 notes. First thing I want to do is go through the steps of how to factor quadratic when you have a number greater than 1 out front in front of t squared. And I have 6 steps here, some a little bit more involved than others, but then we'll go through 3 examples here. So the first one, if we had this expression 6t squared plus 26t plus 24. The first is factor out a common factor if you can, and that would be the factor of 2, which would simplify our expression inside the parentheses to 3t squared plus 13t plus 12. Alright. Then, next step would be determine the signs, and this says use half sheet, but this is from our 9.5 notes. The first page of our 9.5 notes goes through that, and since we have 2 addition signs to start with, we're going to end with 2 addition signs here. Okay. Some people kind of tend to skip over that step. So, number 3 would be use the AC method. So we're going just using the expression inside the parentheses. 3 times 12 would be 36, and then we have to find factors of 36 that add up to 13. And we get 9 plus 4. Step number 4 would be split up the b term. Okay, so we're taking that 13 and we're splitting it up. Okay, so we're doing that. And I would prefer to have the 9 with the 3 because of the common factors, and the 4 with the 12. Okay. Then what we would do, number 5 is probably the most difficult step, is you have to factor out common factors from each side. So we're going to factor out a 3t on the left, we're going to factor out a 4 on the right, and we should have t plus 3 in the parentheses there. Then we can just write it all together, bringing this 3t and this plus 4 down into one factor to get a final factored expression of 2 times 3t plus 4 times t plus 3. So go ahead and pause the video or rewind it however you need to make sure you get those notes. But we're going to move on to some examples here. So this example is 5n squared plus 19n plus 12. 5 and 19 are primes here, so there's not going to be any common factors. We have 5 times 12. That's the start of our AC method. 5 times 12 is 60. And then what we need to do is we need to find factors of 60 that add up to 19. So if you take a look at your factor sheet, hopefully you'd find out that we have 2 factors of 15 and 4. 15 times 4 gives us 60. 15 plus 4 gives us 19. So we're going to split up this 19 into 15 and 4. And I would keep the 15 on the side with the 5. So I'd do 5n plus 4n plus 12. And this is where we would split it up and factor out as much as we can from each side. 5 and 15 have a common factor of 5, and n squared and n have a common factor of n. So 5 and n came out. One n has to stay inside the parentheses. And then 15 divided by 5, that would be 3, and then this n got pulled out already. So we have 5n and then n plus 3 on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, all we can do is factor out a 4. And with that, we have 12 divided by 4, which would be the 3 after that. So then what we do is just bring the 5n and the 4 together. And we have n plus 3. And that would be your factored form of that expression. And that's pretty much all we're doing, is we're taking an expression in standard form and bringing it down, writing it in factored form. So go ahead and rewind this if you still need to take notes, but we're going to move on to this example. We have 2x squared minus 11x minus 21. Once again, 2 and 11 are primes, so we can't factor anything out. But we're going to go 2 times negative 21, and that's going to be a negative 42. We need to multiply to a negative 42, and we need to add to a negative 11. negative 11. So if you take a look at your factor sheet, we have 3 and 14, but they have to add to negative 11, so that's going to be a negative 14. So we're going to split this up, split this negative 11 up into a negative 14 and a positive 3. So we're going to rewrite 2x squared minus 14x plus 3x minus 21. And it really doesn't matter if the 14 or the 3 goes first. You're going to basically come up with the same answer either way. It's just the order would be different, but with multiplication that doesn't matter. So on the left hand side we're going to factor out a 2x, okay, and then what we're left with is x minus 7. 14 divided by 2 would give us 7 on the left hand side. On the right hand side we're going to find a common factor between 3 and 21, and that would be 3, and we would get x minus 7 in the parentheses as well. And then finally, I'm just going to write it in factored form, our last step. We have 2x plus 3 times x minus 7. I know that was a little fast. If you need to rewind or pause it and take notes, but we do we are going to go on to the next example. Last example for today, 10w squared plus 11w minus 8. That middle term, that b term, 11, is a prime number, so we're not going to be able to factor anything out once again. We have 10 times negative 8 gives us negative 80. So we need to multiply to negative 80, and we need to add to a positive 11. And if you take a look at your factor sheet, you have 10 and 8 don't work, but if you use 5 and 16 and then make the 5 negative, that'll add to your positive 11. That's probably the hardest part about this problem, is finding those two factors that add to 11, because you're using the negative 5. So we're going to split that middle term up. 10w squared. I'm going to put the 5 with 10, so minus 5w, plus 16w minus 8. Then we split it up. I'm going to factor a 5w out. That means, see, 10 divided by 5, that would be 2, and 1w is already factored out, but the other one's got to stay. And then this whole term right here, that 5w got factored out. So what we have to do is we have to at least leave a negative 1 behind. So that's for the left-hand side. For the right-hand side, common factor of 16 and 8 would be 8. And then this would also be 2w minus 1. So last part would be to bring it together, 5w plus 8 and 2w minus 1. Okay, so there's 6 steps, kind of laying out what you would need to do to factor out your trinomials into 2 binomials, and there's 3 examples for you to help you with your assignment.